segue to Black Zeus Book of the Week. Woke Racism by John McWhorter. How a new religion has betrayed Black America. Give us a quick synopsis, brother.
Woke racism. So basically, this gentleman is a Black associate professor at Columbia University. He says he's liberal and that he's democratic, and he has a major gripe with the current state of social justice, or what's known as wokeism, that has basically kidnapped and paralyzed social justice and made a mockery of it. And furthermore, has become somewhat of a religion to a group of people that seems to be untouchable and yet create law and legislation, in our society.
Beautiful. All right, well, we got some great questions this week. Let's get into it. Being that this is your book, we'll go pick a question from Black Zeus first. The author compares wokeism to being a religion. Do you agree? Why or why not?
You know what? It has.
Oh, okay.
It has some components of it, motherfucker. These niggas taking this shit to the next level. Okay, I can tell you I had a premium.
That's what happens when you miss a week, man.
Oh, see, I was doing this last week. My bad, Earl.
Yes, that's what happens.
Okay, it has some aspects of it where you have a following who, I don't really know what God they're fucking following. The only difference, really, honestly, is that they're not really following a God per se, but they were all coming together and have a specific belief. I guess that shit could be similar. I don't know. I don't really feel like people who are religious, like the average person who practices a religion, goes hard against somebody else who doesn't practice that religion. Like, if you a Black dude and you're not necessarily, and you consider yourself a Black person, you consider yourself woke, you're going hard at the fucking Uncle Tom, the dude who you consider Uncle Tom. I don't know that people who practice religion necessarily, go hard that blatantly against people who don't necessarily follow their same beliefs.
Are you saying that in modern times they don't go after each other like that, or like historically?
I'm saying now.
Even now.
Well,
bro, have you seen Palestine?
Yeah, I'm about to say.
that whole West
Israel
Bank
right
Israel, like the Palestinians and the Israelis, they're fighting over a holy land, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is it because they both have different? But like the Palestinians aren't trying to convert them. They're fighting for something that they feel.
One people believe that their God told them that they had certain promised lands and that certain lands belonged to them because their God said so. Not because they had any deeds, paperwork, not because they were there first, because their God said so.
So they're
started
fighting,
this.
I got you. So they're fighting for what they think is right, but they're not they're not fighting them out other motherfuckers for not believing the same way that they believe.
Yes, they are. If I'm coming to your house, Kel, and telling you God has deemed this house to be mine, and I'm telling you to get the fuck out, you're not respecting my religion. If you say, no, nigga, this is my house, and want to fight me for it.
So the land, okay, so the Palestinians are trying to take land that's already owned by somebody else.
They try to reclaim land.
They try to reclaim. This land has gone back and forth for centuries.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I digress.
And then the Christians had it, the Muslims had it, the Jewish had it. It's gone back and forth.
It's like going to go talk to a Black Israelite, Henry.
That was my example. You ever been to downtown North back in the 90s? Bruh. I don't know what it's like now, but man,
back it's still like that. It's still like that. They're still aggressive, like, yes.
Yes, man.
Still like that, bro.
Have you ever been coming out of Benedict's going down there. Yeah, they used to go at you hard.
Hard, yeah. Hard.
Oh yeah, they still around.
You better know your stuff because they coming hard.
They coming at you hard, bro.
He compared the wokeism to being a religion. I think it could be similar to that. I think it's more like a religious cult. You know what I mean? I think it's more like a cult, and cults, they get together, find more people that like stuff that they like, and they make that happen. I think it's more of a religious like quote. Not that there's a higher being to follow, just that we got these, and it goes back to Coates and Kendi. They're supposed to be the two priests of this woke thing. They're not being challenged. They're not being challenged. This is what the author is speaking to. They're not being challenged because because they were the first, they're accepted as that. So he gets challenged and everybody challenges John, but they don't challenge the others. But I think that woke can be a religion. I think people can look at it as being a religion.
Yeah, I completely agree. In regards to comparing being woke, being a religion, especially when he talks about the elects and obviously not to be repetitive, and you talk about the principal indoctrination that happens where it gets no pushback, like there's no critical thinking, especially when he talks about the third wave of racism movement, where that sort of theological thinking often is left not challenged, and that sort of thing is that happens consistently, especially when we were talking about the book The Origins, where religion oftentimes doesn't necessarily meet those challenges. There's never that rethinking that occurs. You just take things for what they are, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this is how it's been. So this is how it will be.
And this is how it will be. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I look at religion in a different way than I think most people do. I think most people look at religion as a title or a place or a group of people. Mm-hmm. I look at religion as a mindset, where if you look at the way religion's set up, there is a storybook, whether you're talking about the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Everybody's got a storybook, With wokeism, as the author of this book pointed out, he pointed out a number of books that I know myself have read as well, like Between the World and Me by Keats. Like, these are books that are very common amongst the same group, white fragility and this, that, and the other, right? So there's your storybooks. Then who is your prophets? Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. Your prophets in this would be guys like Ta-Nehisi Keats and what's the other one you said he was at war at?
Ibn Kende.
Kende. There's your prophets. There's those are your mouthpieces, that represent the movement or the organization or the group or the mindset, if you will. Right? Then you say, well, who's your sacrifice? In Islam, in Judaism, it would be Moses who had to, be banished to the desert. In Christianity, it would be Jesus who got crucified. And in Islam, it would be Muhammad who, sailed off on a horse unicorn, on a winged unicorn. I'm sorry.
It was a wing.
It was a winged unicorn, that took him to the heavens. He went with style. But if you look at in this wokeism, every Black person that ever died or suffered, when you're talking about George Floyd, you're talking about
Freddie Gray,
Trayvon Martin, Freddie Gray, this, that, they are the martyrs, they are the sacrifices, that have been made. Now, here's where it gets interesting. anyone of the same complexion, black, right, that speaks against it is the same as a Judas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Turned against his people, sold them out, this, that, and the other. And what do we call those brothers?
Coons, Uncle
And
Toms,
sellouts.
sellouts.
Don't forget, Judas, got the 30 pieces of silver, to sell out Jesus. And that's why black folks call each other sellouts, because of that story of Judas. You know what I mean? Then you have the whole the Salem witch hunts of cancer culture. I'm gonna find out what you tweeted, or I'm gonna see what you said on your comedy special 10 years ago before this wokeism shit came out. You know what I mean? So to me, it has all of the mental triggers of a religion, and I completely agree with the author. I don't think it's more of like a place or book. Like, I think most people think, oh well, you don't go to church every Sunday, you don't go and go door to door telling people how they should switch up. But technically, you are doing it every time somebody disagrees with you, and you make a public spectacle of them to let everybody else know this will happen to you if you have this different opinion.
Hence the news story we read, what we just went over not too long ago with the McDonald's CEO. Yeah. Where no context was added to what he was referring to. Just blind. It's just like a
Even
blind.
Without context, reading what was said, word for word, it was nothing that pointed any fingers at race.
Exactly.
Not one word in that text.
If anything, it was more individualized than anything else.
Yeah.
The onus was on the individual. These parents, that parent and that parent.
Yeah.
Not all parents of this race, but that parent and that parent.
Yeah. So you do have that blind Salem witch hunt trial sort of mentality that does lurk around, this sort of woke racism that, things get out of context. You don't get the full scope of what transpired, and immediately we go into, lynching mode.
Lynching.
It's like we just
Charlie, yes.
Crucifying mode to be crucifying
torches
mode.
And pitchforks.
Yeah. All right, man. All right, next question. In chapter 3, what attracts people to this religion? The author states a black mother in Atlanta is much more like a white one than she is one from Senegal. What do you think about this perspective, and why, when Pan-Africanism is presented or discussed, this dilemma is not even mentioned?
I like it. Back to me one more time.
So in chapter, this is my question. So in chapter 3, what attracts people to this religion? The author states a black mother in Atlanta is much more like a white one than she is one from Senegal. Why do you think? What do you think about this perspective? And the second part to this question is, and why when Pan-Africanism is presented or discussed, this dilemma is not even mentioned?
No, that's what threw me off with the second part. Okay, cool.
So,
the reality is.
Oh, okay. I could go first.
The reality is, a modern Black American woman, is not going to relate to an African woman, a Jamaican woman, a Haitian woman, a Dominican woman, or any other, because it's still cultural and mental. All of it is mental, and if your mental beliefs and views and this, that, and the other, and experiences are formed, individually and personalized, there's no way you're going to tell me that you can relate to someone who's not even in your zone, that doesn't live your lifestyle, doesn't live your experiences. So that is pretty clear. That should be pretty clear and obvious. But why is it not mentioned in Pan-Africanism? Because it would go against the monolithic thinking. If you actually said, okay, as a people, we have been oppressed for X amount of years, and we have had this, that, and the other. As a Black people, it would maybe pull us all together in one direction. But if you actually compared experiences and said, well, the African who's been living in a country that doesn't have as much medical access or a high amount of AIDS and completely different climax and issues to deal with, can't relate to the black woman who's saying, but they didn't let me get the executive job because I'm a black woman. You see what I'm saying? They can't possibly relate. They're like, bitch, are you serious? That's your hardship.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But that would tear the whole Pan-African American, the Pan-African movement apart, because you don't have a cohesive. I'm sorry, you don't have a common enemy, if that makes any sense. Like, that's what holds the Pan-African community, a common enemy of like, oh, we have to go against white oppression or bigotry and this, that, and the other, and blase. That's the thing. It's like, it's not about just building the community or whatever, but it's also based on a one monolithic victimizing mindset.
Yeah, wasn't that kind of touched on in disintegration of the Black Americans and shit like that, where you have all these different classes of Black people who don't really relate to one another, and like the American Black person doesn't really have a history or culture that they could pull from. So shit, I've never even been to Senegal, but I know what a fucking white woman act. I can relate better to, and I don't even know if it's necessarily a white woman, but just an American woman better than I could to one who's in fucking in a whole different continent who struggles with different than mine. So I don't really find that surprising that they can't relate to somebody who may look the same way as them just because they aren't necessarily the same. I mean, on a smaller scale, if I'm growing up in the freaking hood and you got another Black person who grows up in the suburbs, I don't really, I can only, outside the fact that we're both Black and we may experience some of the same things in America, maybe, like, I can't really relate to you like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great point.
Oh, I don't get no fucking sound effect for that shit, bro?
My bad, brother.
Man, nigga missed a week. I can't even get a fucking ding. All right.
New thing.
I was going to share my own anecdotal story to this because when he cited that, I was just like, this is so spot on. I think we spend so much in regards of looking for dissimilarities amongst the races in America, where it's just like, when you really talk about the Pan-African movement, like, it falls flat on your face. You're going to quickly realize that you have more in common with other races of people within this country than you will have overseas. And I never forget, I've never been to Haiti. My brother has. The one year in which my mom was trying to coordinate it, I was busy with wrestling season and I couldn't go. So she sent my brother. And the first thing my brother said when he came back, he was just like, they were nice, but they referred to him as an American. It was just like they didn't associate it because obviously both of us don't really speak Creole like that, and they just didn't necessarily see him. While they were excited, it was just different. It was just like he just couldn't relate to anything. And then when you look at it at a more microscopic level, like I remember the last time I went to my wife's family reunion down in Virginia, she had, it was like this big plot of open land and stuff like that, and her family had some white Southern dude to come up and put some ACs because it was hot as balls out there, bro. It was just hot. And he had a heavy Southern drawl. My wife's extended family down there had a heavy Southern drawl. And my wife couldn't even relate to that culture. Like, she had a hard time understanding her relatives that were out there, but this white dude and her Black side of the family they understood each other. They laughed and cracked all, had shared jokes. It was like, all right, I see you later, blah, 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 and it's just like we spend so much time looking at dissimilarities while like, yes, America has had its tumultuous, bumpy roads, but like, I think a lot of times Black folks need to realize like, we do have a lot more in common based on the culture that, we were bred into.
We do, but that white guy had more of a shared history. You know what I mean? He had more of a shared history, even though he was not part of that family. Because
correct, that's what I'm saying. Like he has a more shared history and commonalities.
Yeah.
Whereas, like my wife, she was just like, she was just like, I have a hard time understanding because they had some heavy, Southern draws out there. So, like for her, she was like, it's always cool to see them, but it's just like she can't relate. To Kelvin's point, you gotta have a Black dude from the suburbs, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air sort of thing. Black kid in the suburbs, Black kid in the hood. They're both Black, but that doesn't necessarily mean they, there's a lot of likabilities amongst them. Whereas you could have a white kid who grew up in the hood, he will have a lot more in common with that Black kid in the hood than he, that Black kid will have with that Black kid in the suburbs.
Yeah, and if I'm going to Senegal, we're not talking about race. I'm just saying, we're not talking about race over in Senegal. Like, that's not going to be the conversation. So we won't have much in common. You're it's a lot of times, like you said, when you don't even have common with your folks down south. You know what I mean? These are your family members, but the commonality is different because you're like, y'all still got dirt roads. Like, y'all know they got this thing called concrete, right? It's things like that. Like, seems like y'all living in like the Flintstones age when y'all know they got this stuff, right? They got this stuff, and it's like, it's just those small nuances that make people, that make your differences seem so grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no, they don't talk about it in Pan-Africanism because they will, like Black Zeus said, destroy the whole concept of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I was watching something on Pan-Africanism where they were saying how a lot of times when you got Black Americans that try to expat into Africa, like the Africans out there, they're kind of hesitant about embracing them because they don't want them trying to take over. So it's just like you also have that dilemma. So not only like you have this cultural thing, but you might have that reticency of whether or not you're going to be embraced because you are foreign, regardless of.
It's what Black Zeus said. What was the example? This is my home, but my religion say I'm taking your home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like that concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah, being able to walk up to somebody else's house and say, this is mine.
Yeah, I know I'm from American, but I'm really Senegalese, and this is my shit. So I'm coming over there, and they're like, "What? No, you're not. The hell are you talking?" Like,
and that's why I think Pan-Africanism hasn't necessarily, because it was introduced in the 70s or 80s, Smith, by Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't really taken off because I think it's just, you can't, to what John McWhorter said, it's just like, a Black person in Atlanta will have a lot more in common with a white person from Atlanta than they will from any foreign Black person that comes into this nation. It's just, and I think if we spend more time at least embracing that, we can overcome a lot of the tensions and conflicts that we have with one another.
Yeah. But the embracing part is the most challenging part. So
it is. All right. I hope you guys listen to Kelvin's audio.
Yes, I listened to 2 minute and 15-second clip.
All right. So here's Mr. Mr. 1045 question. Why aren't these attempts to paint Blacks in a positive light a sufficient replacement for reparation when the average person would spend the money frivolously?
Wait. Where's that question?
While they're mulling that over, one, if they actually gave out reparations, knowing the fact of, look at what happened with stimulus checks, in the hood. Everybody was ordering from Amazon, this, that, and the other, what I mean? So essentially, it just boosts the economy. So reparations is actually a good idea for the economy. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just don't know how. I don't know how like all right, so you said painting black people in a brighter light, right? In a more positive light. How exactly how exactly is what he said painting black people in a brighter light?
Like,
Because I'm trying to understand the question in a way. If you're saying what I think you're saying, but I don't want to assume.
Well, it's just more so like not even just painting them in a brighter light, but it's just more so like acknowledging them in a positive manner. Not like, okay, a nigga gets shot with their kids at the drive-thru and they saying, okay, that's the parents' fault, even though in that instance it may be, but just more so, okay, Black lives do matter. We're acknowledging the fact that this fucking blackface, these blackface episodes might have been offensive. We're acknowledging the fact that Juneteenth is a fucking, was something that actually happened. So like we're getting the acknowledgement, we're getting treated in a positive way.
Yeah. Right.
So why the need for reparations? I would chime in with this. And I think Smith might have my back on this. While that is all nice, there are inequities that need to be repaired. Like you can't necessarily overlook how, yes, you got, you have you come out of slavery in the early 19th century late 19th century, and then you basically are not given the resources and access to even be a whole citizen in the United States. Mm-hmm. So while all of those platitudes are nice, you can't overlook those sort of inequities. Not in addition to like when Black people did establish some level of equity for themselves, you snatched it away. You put laws, or you
burned it.
You burned it. You snatched it.
You did everything.
You did everything. So like for a good 70, 80 years after slavery, you did all of this Jim Crow. Like if you look into what happened during Jim Crow with redlining, and you talk about even what's happening in Flint, it just doesn't even have to be monetary. It could just be talk about like you building Black communities near hazardous wasteland where, generation of kids are being exposed to those toxic chemicals and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's great that you could acknowledge that this show was toxic and it had blackface and, we shouldn't use these words, or this advertisement was fucked up, but nothing could replace how you basically didn't necessarily treat Black people for damn near a century as a whole in this society. That's why reparation is, in my humble opinion, needed.
Yeah, I concur with you on that. There's not much more to be said, because at the end of the day, taking down Confederate statues and changing master bedrooms to call them suites, that ain't shit, bro. That's nothing. Changing the golf masters to golf legends, that ain't shit. How does that help us? Like, at the end of the day, it's finances and it's land. That's why reparations are needed. You know what I mean?
But that's,
we don't.
Let me know you done.
Let me finish. We don't have any places. We just said why a white woman in Atlanta has more in common with a Black woman in Atlanta than in Senegal, because we don't have a place to go back to. We don't have a home. Most of us don't know where that of which we came from. So we have this American part, and like Cass said, every city that we was in that we started creating our own, they came and they burned it. They came and they took it. They came and they
redlined it
and did all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we need for reparations to have people have their land. I don't give a fuck what they do with their land. To have people have their money. I don't give a fuck what they do with their money, and neither should you. But you should pay the people the same way that the Holocaust members have been paid, in the same way you're trying to pay these migrants and shit. Like, we know the value of money, pay them. And
to add, it's not for me to say I don't recognize some of the bullshit antics that is happening in the guise of racism. Like we just talked about the McDonald's story. We talked about, there's other shit that for me, I will recognize the bullshit that I see under the guise of racism. Like, yo, like, I don't care about that. But when it comes to reparation talks, I think that we shouldn't necessarily poo-poo that idea. Like, we just shouldn't. Especially when you got a current fucking administration talking about handing out $1 million to families. But that's for, you know.
Especially when everybody,
but you know what though? Like,
even 9/11 people
hold on, let me go.
reparations.
So like, I get the whole idea of if we're gonna give reparations to anybody, it should be, in my opinion, the motherfucking people who's being treated unfairly now. Most of the people who would qualify for these reparations, the motherfuckers is probably dead and gone. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then also the whites who treated them unfairly, a lot of them are dead and gone too. So you look at the situation. I'm not even saying that is right or not. But look at the situation with the Mexican immigrants. They're not paying these niggas money for shit that happened 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago. So, okay, if y'all want to pay us anything, pay reparations to fucking George Floyd and all the people who
Cal, like, you can't necessarily.
You got it totally wrong with that one.
Yeah, you got it totally wrong with that one, because first of all, a lot of the ills that came down on Black people were government policies. Like, these were, you got to read The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, bro. Like, I would drive this afternoon to hand you that book.
And
because,
you said that people died. Okay, so what about their descendants, man?
But that's the thing. It's just like,
this is wealth. This is how you create.
This government has paid reparations to the Holocaust under the Obama administration, bro. Like, if you take the time to Google reparations that we have paid, these acts did not happen anytime soon, but yet we're still paying into this. Paying
to everybody except the Negro people.
Like,
that's what it is. Everybody gets it.
I could call bullshit when bullshit occurs, but when it comes to reparations, man, like, there's no denying that. I don't care how, like Smith said, I don't care how people spend their money. I don't care how they use the goddamn land. You cannot strip people. You cannot, strip people of their land. You can't necessarily put people in fucked up situations where they can't prosper. Like, you just can't do that shit, bro. And it's just like the government has delayed this process for so fucking long. And it's just like they know what they're doing. The end game is what they're doing is they're waiting for another 2 generations to occur where it's no longer a topic of conversation.
Bingo. Trying to play the waiting game.
Yeah, they're playing the waiting game. No, but anyone with any intellect could see what the fuck is happening.
Look at how much money they gave to these people from 9/11, man.
Yeah, they paid like, some form of reparations for 9/11. That was a terrorist act. Like, how the fuck reparations get paid for that shit?
Like, we was just in a what was it, Black Zeus? The never-ending war in Afghanistan for fucking years and years, and we wasted all that fucking money, bruh, and got nothing out of it besides some dead soldiers. Yeah. Reparations, bro. Fuck out of here. This is America. Pay that shit.
So I agree and disagree with all of you. So as far as the idea of reparations being paid, I agree. Where I disagree is, how do you determine that? How do you follow the lineage to make sure that the money gets to the right people, not just anybody who's brown, but people who actually have a family lineage?
That's a different discussion, though. But
that's the black dude that follows everybody's history, and he only do it to the rich people right now, to the famous people, and you have him do that shit for everybody.
Well, Professor Henry Louis Gates,
yes,
I think
that's how. Yeah. You have him track the history. It can be done. They've been wasted all this time. That shit could be done. It's just about doing it. That shit could be done, though. Same way they found the Jewish boy's family member and the guy who's from Africa and we're part of Africa. They can do it for every fucking goddamn citizen that is black in America.
Now, here's my question. I do have to ask about this reparations thing. Let's say the United States tomorrow paid out, I don't know, let's say $1 million per black person that's entitled to reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Are we done?
Go ahead, Black Zeus. Go ahead.
We done with this argument? Like, okay, I done paid you.
Now that's an interesting conversation.
I done changed words and terminology. Are we good now? Are we done? Would that actually happen?
That would the conversation.
Or would we still be screaming out?
That's a good conversation.
That's what I want to know.
I think that some people will still scream out, "Woe was me, woe was me," and let me tell you why. Because unlike the distinguished gentleman I have before me, people are going to foolishly spend their money and they're going to say it wasn't enough. That's why I think that it'll still be a woe is me, because motherfuckers is dumb. I said I don't give a fuck what you do with your money. Motherfuckers is dumb. That's why that Dave Chappelle skit with motherfuckers buying truckloads of cigarettes.
At what point is it no longer the liability of someone else other than our own liability and our own self-accountability to get up off our own too? Because now that you have the money, you got the resources. No, I'm just saying, if that happens, let's say that were to happen. Everybody got the money. Everybody got the resources. All right. We have now changed the rules of the game so that you can play on the playing board too. All of that. Right? And when shit go wrong, because motherfuckers are going to waste the money, like you said, buy, a truck full of cigarettes, I don't know, a barrel full of chitlins, I don't know, whatever the fuck,
cocaine and hookers,
whatever it may be, they blow all that money. Whose responsibility is it then?
It's still going. Well, it's still going to be.
Because my whole thing is
responsibility. Because I know this. Even with that money, there'll still be that level of racism that's there that allows Oprah not to be able to buy out of a fucking store. There'll still be that racism that's there that won't allow us to put our money together to buy a sports team, because they're like, nope, that's too much fucking money, too much power.
But here's the thing.
No, listen what I'm saying. Listen what I'm saying. So there'll still be a level. So it doesn't matter how much money you throw at somebody. You know what I mean? There's still going to be a certain ceiling that we still won't be able to get by. But the reparations conversation could be at the end. There will be another conversation. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For me, I'm with Smith, and I agree with you, Black. I think the moment is outlined what reparations is, what it looks like, and it's doled out. That's for me when I think it should end. And I think that's when to segue into your next question, so to speak, is when the self-accountability kicks in. I think, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's the problem. It hasn't happened yet. And I think America's playing that long game where they're waiting for 2 more generations to pass, where the reparation conversation is fucking dead and gone. That's what I think is going to happen.
But maybe, and here's just me thinking as a businessman. If I know I could dump $100,000 to fix the problem, right? And the problem's done, I never have to worry about it again. Then I have no problems making that investment. But if I know I'm going to dump $100,000 into that and to fix the problem, and it's just going to be like, okay, it's not gushing, but it's still fucking leaking. I'm going to be like, well, fuck it, I might as well keep my $100,000.
Well, the problem is because reparations coming from this government, which is taxpayers' money, and you're not going to get everyone on board. The thing is, reparations should have been paid during the civil rights movement at that very moment, and it didn't happen. So now you got 2 generations. You got fucking Kelvin saying that reparations shouldn't even fucking be paid, but it's just like there's people who still alive who still came from the Jim Crow era.
That's motherfuckers is in a mule.
So my thing is, you got his was happening in the landscape of America right now, and this is the bullshit that former President Obama, and now you got VP Harris on this bullshit talking point too. They look at the landscape of America and they say, well, how could you justify reparations when you got all these people who say, I have nothing to do with reparation. I mean, nothing to do with slavery. So like now you have enough people removed from the tragedies that have happened where you got enough people not willing to buy into the concept. So you got a large group of people fighting a small group of people who's trying to fight for what is right. But the large group of people saying like, I had nothing to do with this.
And that's where I push back with the Holocaust and all that. You still pay other people money.
And what's so tragic is you got people within their own community who basically who basically fucking is saying the same shit. Like for me, any black person, like I said, when you talk about how money is spent frivolously, I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah,
it's
I don't
old.
Yeah,
When I hear black people in particular talk that reckless, I'm like, damn, bro, you don't know your fucking history, or you never did a deep dive in regards of the atrocities, not by people, by this government. Like, a lot of the atrocities were not done by individual people. We're talking about the United States government.
Exactly.
That had something to do with this. So it's just like, I just don't think people do enough reading.
And it's like, you see how they just gave back, I keep talking about it, in California, they gave back that beach to that black family.
Yeah.
Land, but the family's like, okay, now where's the money?
Yeah.
Because we would have made
money,
millions of dollars on this beach that you all took from my family.
Well, think about Central Park. Everyone visits Central Park. You know, the vast majority of Central Park was black owned.
Exactly.
That was black owned.
Yeah, you're saying the government is the people who's doing the people wrong. Who's sitting on the government? I mean, there's a lot of white people.
But at the end of the day, when
black people been treated unfairly, white people were in those positions of power. It's not like,
but there's still the government.
It's
still the government, Cal. The government at the end of the day.
How do you expect the government to be any different when they have the people who are racist sitting on it? It's not like the people who's sitting holding these positions in the government are like, okay, well, we're not the racist white people, but we're still going to be treating people unfairly. They're the same people who didn't like black people to begin with.
Well, it's not the same people, Cal, currently. So you got the same people. You got people now who basically could look at the atrocities of the prior administrations and could say, look, all right, this government has apologized for a lot of atrocities in the United States on behalf of the United States. They have yet to apologize for the atrocities of slavery. You know, it's just, in 98, 99, Bill Clinton basically apologized to the family of Dr. Martin Luther King, saying like, yes, we had a hand in the assassination of it's that type of shit. It's just like the government has to be the one to do the repairing. It's not the individuals that I'm not going to look at some random white person and say, yo, you owe me reparations. It's the government, bro. Like, you gotta, you can't deny that shit. But to segue into Schubert's question in regards of when does it end? It ends once it's outlined and is dulled out. But then anything after that is a self-accountability, which goes into your question. Why do black people see self-accountability viewpoints like the authors as being a sellout and see victim? I'm not sure.
I didn't know what that said right there. Like
victim.
I tried, but I couldn't.
Victim mindset, like Umar Johnson as keeping it real. So let me just read that again. Why do black people see self-accountability viewpoints like the authors as being a sellout and see a victim mindset like Umar Johnson as keeping it real?
Sorry about the typo, folks.
No, it's fine, but this is an interesting one. Yeah, it's unfortunate that when we do have black people who are unorthodox in our approach of how to do things in the black community, that we quickly call them all these sort of derogatory, self-hating.
No. Let's be clear. It's not that they're that they're unorthodox. Is that they're going completely against the narrative.
Okay, they're going completely.
When they go completely against the narrative, we all heard them terms. Sell out, Uncle Tom, house nigga. All of these terms come from any time someone calls out black people on their shit.
Well, I would say unorthodox because ultimately, like John McWhorter says, like, he doesn't make a case against reparation. He's for it, actually. But what he calls out is the extra bullshit that happens in the guise of racism. So, like, the self-accountability, like, okay, having the multiple kids out of wedlock, the the callous way we go about killing each other in a disproportionate percentage, unlike other groups. I think the reason for that is, I think because it comes across as do those people come from those communities? Like, I don't know John McWhorter upbringing, but when people look at John McWhorter, it might be a relatability situation. Like Umar Johnson, he's in the streets, he's in these communities, he's visiting these schools. Like Umar Johnson, despite all of his pontification and shit like that, yo, I'm not gonna front this. He's in the streets. He was just in Newark. Whereas like John McWhorter, he's able to pontificate all of these talking points, but like, where's he's talking to? Is he saying these talking points in front of a crowd of mixed white people?
As he was saying, is he black enough to write this book?
Yeah, is he black? You know, is that sort of dilemma that comes into play, like in regards to who are you and where your background is. Now, you could be like a Killer Mike who had the same talking points like a Candace Owen, but is respected, or a Louis Farrakhan who will have the same talking points like a Candace Owen, but it's because those individuals come from that environment. If you're someone who doesn't come from the environment and you just happen to look like us, like John McWhorter says, it sounds like you're playing to a white supremacy. You're blackface and white supremacy type of thing. I think
it's funny that you mentioned Louis Farrakhan, because he talks about nothing but self-accountability.
Yeah,
not viewed as a sellout.
Yeah, and that's why I brought him up, is because if you listen to a lot of Louis Farrakhan shit, he talks about all that self-accountability stuff. It's just because the Nation of Islam are in the trenches in Chicago. Like, they're in the trenches. Like, so it depends on the black person and how they're often, when they're on their like how they're in the pulpit of speaking. Are you in the pulpit of speaking of being someone from that environment, or are you in the pulpit of someone who's never been in that environment, and because you look like the people from said community that you want to talk down upon, that it looks like you know that you're just taking advantage of your race to just spit whatever thing that you want to spit at.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd agree with that one. We'd be more likely to listen or follow somebody who we feel has the same struggle, or who's had the same struggle as us, than somebody who's like, oh, fuck this nigga, no. He ain't never, been on 43rd Street or X, Y, and Z. That nigga ain't never been shot by a nigga. You never been in a hood ass school. So, that shit makes sense. I don't know. The only part,
you was raised with two parents. What do you know?
I know. Only part that
struggle living in the hood.
Only part that doesn't make any sense to me is that niggas aren't smart enough to like put two and two together and realize like, yo, this nigga might be fucking from over here and he might be saying X, Y, and Z, but like, nigga, they're saying the same fucking message and they fight is still the same fight.
I agree. I don't look at them as sellouts. I hate the term sellouts. Mm-hmm. I despise this shit.
So Farrakhan, I don't think falls into this category or this example, only because he's literally coming from a pulpit and coming from a people that their whole religion is based off of self-accountability. So we're not just talking about individuals who come on one accord in a public square. We're talking about, Farrakhan is coming underneath one religion where it's all about self-accountability and carrying yourself. And then from there, extending it into, our social experiences, So I don't think that's the fair example or comparison. That's why I use Umar Johnson versus James McWhorter. And the whole thing is, I don't know if it's like, necessarily the fact of like whether he's in the streets or not, because it all depends. Like, you could have a brother like Jesse Jackson out in the streets and everybody know who Jesse is, this, that, and the other, but they'll follow Umar over, they'll follow Jeffrey, even though Jesse grew up in these streets and this, that, and the other. I find that there's this victim mindset that is set on the Black community, where like if you question or speak against it and say, okay, well, yeah, I see there is racism. I see that they're fine, but what about what you're doing? Or like, you showing up too late for work every day, is not them firing if you're racist. Acting in a certain way, behaving in a certain manner, which is not professional, like in any measure, is not cool. So you can't use that as this racist platform. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is that person who makes that argument, oh, you're not understanding the Black plight. You're not. It's like, no, this has nothing to do with the plight. This has everything to do with your character.
I agree. Yeah.
And the thing is, the fact
that is one thing. Your character is a whole different thing.
I find that we can't, look. We don't like when somebody put the mirror up against us, so it's easier to demonize them and say, "Oh, you a sellout. Oh, you Uncle Tom." Oh, it's like even when you see successful Black people, I've had these arguments with successful Black people who did the work and got to where they are, and then they're still arguing about somebody else who's not doing the work. And it's like, do you not see like how your argument's flawed there? And they'll look at me, even though they're more successful than I am, as I'm the Uncle Tom or the sellout. You see what I'm saying?
I feel you. I think it comes down to, and I don't know who I heard this from. It could have been Dr. Claude Anderson or Nellie Fuller. Basically, Black people are an emotional group of people, for good and for bad. And the bad part is, I think a lot of times we do take in consideration, we look at the person background to assess whether or not is that message coming from a genuine place. And I think that could be our own downfall at times, because it doesn't, like if someone's spitting cold hard facts, if they're a Carlton Banks and they're spitting some cold hard facts about the state of the situation, it is what it is. It's true. And I think we need to get out our feelings from that. But, I don't know how other communities deal with this, but I think when it comes to the Black community, we factor in that sort of where you from, sort of, we're skeptical. I think the thing is, Black people, and this is my opinion, I think Black people have been portrayed by the likes of people who don't seem to have good intentions. So we kind of narrow it down to where you're from in order to see whether or not what you have to say has any legitimacy. I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
A lot of us have fucked over each other, so we have.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes back to bringing from slavery. Like, we hesitate because you
had house Negroes in
exactly.
Field Negroes.
You were telling us we couldn't. You know what I mean? You going to tell us that we're about to run away and escape because we don't like our conditions. But you happy up in that house? You happy? You know what I mean? Like, nah, it's not. So we hesitate.
Yeah, and it's fucked up because someone like I said, someone of like a Candace Owens, she has a lot of great talking points. I will never fix my mouth to call out a sellout. Now, will I say something she could phrase better? Yeah, she could work on some wording and some, around how she might message some shit or hold back in regards of, I see what you about to say, but like this might not be the time to say that message because Black people are emotional about this certain situation. Like the whole George Floyd thing, prime example. Like Candace Owens, I've been following her for years, but like what she had to say about George Floyd, if she had waited, that could have came across a lot better. But like she took the opportunity in that immediate moment where the whole nation was kind of reeling off of that shit to say what she had to say. I don't necessarily disagree what she had to say, but it's just like for a lot of people, like I said, it's either Dr. Claude Anderson or Nellie Fuller that said that Black people by and large are an emotional group of people. And then once you realize that, you got to realize who the messenger has to be,
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate. I think it's an unfortunate situation.
Sure, great question. Fellas, I'll see y'all later.
Peace out.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Deuces, Cal.
Bingo.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yo, give that man a ding for that one. That was excellent.
Work this shit I'm out.
All right, next
God.
question. All right, the author elaborates on the numerous contradictions that are in the third wave of the racist movement, which makes for a disingenuous conversation. Another contradiction not highlighted surrounding is Black culture. How can some of us say Black people don't have a culture while some of us simultaneously scream Black cultural appropriation?
That
So
is kind of really interesting.
So in chapter 1, I should have probably posed the first question, but in chapter 1, when he talks about the third wave of this woke racism, he talks about the tenets in regards to like
how they contradict one another.
Yeah, how they contradict one another. So one thing that I remember when we were reading what was it, Cast by Michelle Wilkerson. And we had a healthy conversation about Black people, whether or not Black people had culture or not. I was on the side that said Black people had culture. But hearing John McWhorter time and time again talk about cultural appropriation, it dinged on me and said, yo, I remember some Black people screaming cultural appropriation. So my thing is, how can you scream cultural appropriation if some of us say that Black people don't have a culture? Go ahead. The floor is yours, fellas.
Well, I already said that, like Black people do and don't have a culture. Like, yes, you have certain norms you see amongst Black people and in traditional behaviors, dress, this, that, and the other attitudes, blah, blah, blah. But culture is an experience that, influences. So the whole thing is influence can happen to anyone, Black, Asian, that, and the other. If I take an Asian kid and I drop him off in the hood from birth, he's going to have more Black culture in him than he's going to have, Asian culture in him. That's just inevitable. That is, but to say that Black people have a culture, meaning the fact that they own it because they're Black, is a load of shit.
Nah, they still go with that. Because even if you're not understanding of what the culture is, if you see Black History Month and everybody starts donning their dashikis, and then you see a Caucasian person with a dashiki on, you're saying that that's cultural appropriation because they shouldn't be wearing a dashiki because you don't know why they have it on. You don't have a conversation with them. So,
well, see, that would be ignorant because the fact of,
that's what I'm saying. So
if someone doesn't understand that that there are white people that are born and raised in Africa. I have one of my clients who's a native born, well-speaking South African, So, once again, culture is what influences you. It's not your DNA.
Nah, but it's the same like they said Elvis Presley, came in and took the culture of the rock and roll. It's things that we create that people appropriate, and then we in turn, I think, let it go. We just let it go, like our breakdancing and beatboxing and shit.
The whole thing is, it's not something you let go. As long as you are showing it to others or you are displaying it, you are causing influence. It's like putting your stuff on Instagram and saying, how do people see everything? You're not letting it go. Once you've made it public, it is public. It does not belong to you anymore.
You say this for all cultures, right?
Exactly.
This is a Black thing, or this is a Navajo thing.
No, you can't.
So my thing is, what I found interesting about the tenets that when he described this sort of disingenuous, because the contradictions in itself cause for disingenuous conversation. I remember last year during the heights of all the protests, Jason and we were having this conversation, and I said, to be honest, I would hate to be a white person today. I wish he was part of this book club so he could basically confirm I said this shit. Because you would talk to one set of Black people and get one response in regards of how they need to behave, how they need to act, how they need to do things, how they need to say things. And then you go meet another set of Black folks that say, nah, this is how things are need to be done. And you're trying to be a quote unquote ally. You know, everyone has heard that term, you know, a white ally. And and it's just like, I would hate to be white today, because if I'm listening to, you know, someone saying Black people don't have culture, and then I'm hearing culture appropriation, like I'm pulling up the story now. Bruno Mars having to defend himself against the accusation of cultural appropriation. And it's just, I remember when that became a topic of conversation, because they were accusing him, because Bruno Mars in his, you know, the past couple of albums or so, he's definitely tapped into some 70s, 80s, 90s type of feel of music.
He can't have soul. He can't have soul look like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, that's a load of shit.
Yeah, it's like,
I thought so too. To be honest, I was nostalgic when I started to hear the music. I'm like, finally somebody's doing some positive shit. None of this mumble rap shit.
Yeah, it's like, then you do it then. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But the thing is, it's confusing though. Like, and to be honest, I feel sorry for a lot of white people who are genuinely trying to be in this conversation and be in this space of trying to understand.
Try to get an understanding, yeah.
Because the contradictions is real. Like, it's legitimately real. And when John McWhorter went through the tenets of the third wave, I was like, yo, I would hate to be white today, because you don't know who to listen to. Do you listen to Dr. Umar Johnson? In regards of, I'm trying to separate more white people, and you like, all right, well, he does nothing, he wants nothing to do with me, let me stay out of his way.
And I should stay out of, then I don't talk to anybody, because
then silence is violence.
Exactly. You know? Exactly.
By not saying something, you're saying something. You know, like, what?
Yeah, it's just like,
what?
By not condoning it, you're condoning it.
By denying it, you're agreeing to it.
You're agreeing to it.
So by that rate, if I go to rape a girl and she says no, she agreed to it, Judge.
Yes.
Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, no.
So what do we do? Like, now that we acknowledge that these contradictions exist, what do you expect white people or non-Black people to do?
They just need to stand by us and support us, but get out of our way. They need to be good friends, but keep their distance so that we have our individuality. But don't be trying to, space us out. But don't be trying to, include us as some token nigga. Like.
And
so do 2 + 1 = 3, but divide 3 by 2. What?
So you can get 7. And then you say, go figure that shit out. Go figure it. I gave you the rule book. Now go figure it out.
Yo, ask me when I'm okay, but don't be in my space when I'm mourning.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I'm okay, but don't pat me on my back.
I mean, call me in the morning, but don't let my phone ring. What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So what I probably should have phrased this question that way.
It's individual, man. You gotta deal with individuals. You can't deal with these people as a whole mass. That's been
that's the whole thing. All of these
deal with the whole culture instead of dealing with individuals. Treat me as a individual. That's all that people are asking. Don't treat me as that motherfucker look like he might be. Approach me like a human being. Like, you got to do it individual. You can't do because like you just said, Umar saying one thing, Jonathan saying another thing. You got everybody saying something different. So fuck what everybody saying. Treat me as an individual. Say hello. Hey, how are you?
I don't know.
That's where my issue is the fact of the message is going out because there's no cohesive message within. The whole thing is we automatically assume he's black, she's black, she's black. So they must agree with what I think. And it's like, we never even had a conversation, homie.
Exactly.
But the minute I open my mouth and you don't agree with it, I'm an Uncle Tom.
And we don't.
But yet that brother over there agrees with it too. But he's afraid to say something because you called me an Uncle Tom and shamed me in front of the group. I mean, so we're not having an actual open discussion so we can figure out what it is that we want and the best way for us to move towards that direction and be one cohesive. No.
And now I'm a white person watching all of this infighting, not knowing who to side with, what to take from that.
Exactly.
Like I get the whole treat each one of us individually. I get that. Respect one another on an individual basis. But when we're talking about having a national discussion about race, there's a lot of conflicting messages, bruh.
Yeah, that's why the national discussion can't be. That's why we got these 3 black folks fighting with each other. All book writers, but they fight with each other.
Or collegiate scholars.
Yeah. And... you know what I mean? That's why you can't deal with it at the national part, because you're confused as hell. You know what I mean? And nationally, it looks like blacks don't love each other. It looks like blacks constantly kill each other. That's what it looks like nationally.
Yeah.
I mean, if you coming from another country and you come in here and you're like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? So that's why I say the individual. I know that shit sounds like kumbaya-ish, but shit, but
that is the reality.
It's the reality. Yeah.
It is the reality. At the end of the day, it's like, listen, every man and woman only has enough power to change one person on this planet, himself. It boils down to each individual person. No one is even if you're a family, me, my wife, and my son. My son does shit that is dumbass shit that I wouldn't do. My wife does shit that I don't necessarily agree with or like either, and vice versa. You know, if I'm gonna take the more responsible, the unfun rate. My wife calls me the unfun. Anyway, if I'm gonna do it, the unfun way, my wife would totally disagree with that. Even though we all in one house, share one last name, so it's just like to deny that. We're individuals, get out of here. I think it's just a fact of, listen, we need to address what the real major problems are and not really get our emotions involved in it. Got to be more objective about it and say, okay, here's the problem. What's a real solution?
Not get the emotions involved.
Yeah, because the emotions just patronizing. I mean, honestly, most of the people in this cult that is wokeism are in it for social clout. Mm-hmm. That's why I never got into the religion part about my conversation, was the fact of, like Kel said, there is no God, but there is a God, or many gods, a pantheon. It's called society. Everyone worships at the temple of society and says, society, choose me, bless me, hit me with as many Facebook and Instagram likes and hearts and comments and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, this, that, and the other. It's all of how much of attention you can get. That is the God of today.
Well, attention. I want to add to what you said. There's social clout and there's monetary gains from it, there's
that too. Every religion has a little
because
bit of monetary
one
gain.
of the things McWhorter points out is Ibn Kende is making bank having these public discussions. Like he's having $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 speaking arrangements to discuss.
God damn.
Yes, man.
That's why they doing this fighting, because it's big money.
You fucking with my money.
Yeah, there's money to be involved. And I remember Malcolm X saying some shit like that. Like, you got grifters within the community that will exploit the hardship, not necessarily caring about repairing it, but they like to just say, yo, these are the issues. Here's 30, 40.
So are you pointing fingers at the two ladies that were the heads of Black Lives Matter and got $90 million from corporations and did nothing to help the communities or the families of those, people that were lost, such as George Floyd, such as, Eddie Gray, such as Trayvon Martin? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Son,
I don't believe you.
Son.
Hey, what's her name? Patrice Cullors?
Yeah.
She's a multi-millionaire.
And she wrote a book saying, when they call you a terrorist, like, what was she doing before this? Before Black Lives Matter? That's what I want to know.
It's not just the social clout, bro. These people are making bank exploiting racial discussions, and racial tensions in America, and it's unfortunate. So it's
they following the book of Jesse Jackson. Damn, son.
Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Umar Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, my dude.
And you see when Obama was getting elected, what Jesse said.
Oh, they clip this nigga nuts.
Yeah. All that come out. All that real shit come out, bro. All that real shit come out.
My man did not realize he was on a hot mic. Like he said, he need he wants his.
But that's the kind of dude he really is. You know what I mean? That's who he really is. All that pandering, philanthropy,
time.
Run shit.
Jesse said what?
Yo, Jesse basically. Hold on, let me see if I
you missed that,
it, bro. Yo,
man, Black Zeus, you never heard that? Oh man.
Oh, this is the first time I'm hearing that.
This is when I think Obama won the primary candidacy for the Democratic race.
Because remember, Jesse was trying to be the first black president forever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm
with his Rainbow Coalition stealing money ass.
Rainbow Coalition.
That was his thing, the Rainbow Coalition.
If he only knew what that would lead to today. What that means, that has a different meaning today.
Yeah, he talked about Obama like,
let's see if this is it. So basically, he whispered, I don't know who was the gentleman next to him.
I don't know who that guy was next to.
Yeah, but he was basically saying, like, talking about the black people, I want to cut this dude nuts off.
Wow.
Come on, Jesse.
But in hindsight now,
what's funny though, because he ain't say that about his boy Bill Cosby.
Nah, he didn't.
Bill Cosby was talking down to black people for a long ass time.
He did it.
And that's how he ended up getting caught with that, because he was talking down and that comedian said, yo, bro, you talking down on us, but you be slipping bitches pills.
Yeah. That I agree with.
Like you trying to be holier than thou and you out here doing some
bullshit. Yeah, that I agree with. But
it's always going to be some heat.
But you know what's so funny? In hindsight, though, I agree with Jesse had to say.
Agree with that,
but Jesse had to say, or his animosity towards Obama during that time. It's Obama. Like I said, it goes to your question in regards of the sellout versus to the likability. Obama got away with, and this is going to sound controversial, he got away with being considered black based through his wife. Because if you look at if Obama was some dude who was married to any other chick, non-black chick like a Michelle Obama, I don't think he would have got the presidency.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think I was just looking at some stuff Obama was doing though. That motherfucker was black though.
I don't think there were a lot of people who questioned. You got to remember, Smith, during that run up, a lot of people did question his blackness.
No, I know they was questioning it, but they ain't know that listen, black is rapping and basketball.
I get it. Look,
rap, ball, and fried chicken. That's what the fuck he do. That's what Obama do.
Once again, are you saying that's
a Little Wayne coming?
Is that black culture?
He's Little Wayne coming. You know, the basketball court ain't never get used like that in the White House ever.
Chicken wings, basketball, and the rap. That's black culture.
Is that? Look, I get it. To be honest,
did the white half of him, did the black half of him, is that okay? But the other white half of him, is that culture appropriation? Because he's half white.
Because he's half and half, right?
Yeah. So is his white half culture appropriating right now? I just want to know.
I'm gonna say this. At the end of the day, that's why I said they need to get old boy to do the test on everybody, because most of us have white motherfucker. Like, get it twisted.
I will say that
if you're from America, you probably got some white in you. That's just how that shit is. So most of us, if we do the history lessons, bruh, because the slave masters were sleeping with the goddamn slaves. It is what it was. I look at my grandmother and I'm like, damn, grandma, you was a high yellow one, huh, grandma?
Oh,
hey, don't think it go both ways.
Hey, it is what it is.
You call grandma high yellow one.
Yeah, that's what it is. Her and her sister, they were high yellow.
You're not lying, because my wife,
they were treated differently because of the color of their complexion. Like this is America. This is how it was done. You know what I mean? A lot of that shit is still lingering. So, it ain't like we could just sweep it under the rug. But my grandmother was high yellow. I'll show you a picture. You're gonna be like, damn, yeah, she was.
Yo, you're not lying, because in my wife's side, that range is ill.
Yeah.
That range is ill. I'm like, God damn. But anyway, all right, let's chime in with the rest of these questions. So my man Black Zeus then got one of my favorite comedians. I think he's in the top 5 of list of comedians that I enjoy listening to, just because the motherfucker's just canny and
this
smart.
Clip was much better too. This clip was much more entertaining.
Yes. So let's play this clip.
Just for you, Hop. Just for you.
And then we chime in with Black Zeus question. Is that the voice of Patrice O'Neal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. So your question after hearing that is, why does double standards like this socially acceptable?
Why are double standards?
Oh yeah, why are double standards like this socially acceptable? That's a good one. I think it's rooted in, and I've heard this before. This is not something I personally believe. It's something that I heard. So don't come at me when I cite this. I think it's because Black people do not have any institutional power per se. So therefore, we could get away with these sort of verbal abuses, whereas white people, because they have all of these institutional powers, they should be able to, shrug off any sort of verbal insult that comes their way, because of the whole system is there to support them regardless of what they have to verbally endure.
Well, that could be part of it. I think that is still crackers. It still don't hold much meaning to it. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds cool. To say cracker ass cracker. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, George Jefferson was using that shit on TV. So that shit ain't have that much weight because he was using that shit on TV.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like. So I think that, yeah, that's why he's like, should we be getting offended? Why would you be? You're not a fucking cracker. You're not a like saltine and shit. So I don't know. The double standard is different because it's the connotations and the emphasis we put on certain words and shit, I guess.
So funny you should say, at the end of the day, you're not a cracker. So at the end of the day, do you know that you're a negative? If a white person comes at you,
no, but the difference in that, because I was going to mention that too, but the difference in that, like I said, the cracker doesn't have the stinging, lasting effect of the term that nigger does.
So if I'm understanding you right, because I think I've heard this argument before, where it's the fact of nigger has a much longer historical emotional damage versus cracker, which doesn't
cracker was the only thing that somebody came back with that they could figure at that time, but it never had a lasting effect.
It never had the weight.
It never had any weight to it, because kind of what Cass said is that institutional power. You know what I mean? It's that part, and that gave the word so much power. Like at the end of the day, you had like nigger toothpaste and you had signs that said nigger. You never had signs that said cracker can't eat here or cracker can't eat. You know what I mean? So it's more demoralizing. To hear cracker, you're just like, okay, he's stupid. Like, he's calling me a cracker. That doesn't, But to hear nigger from someone, like, I don't know if you all saw that clip of the white lady when she just kept using it repeatedly. She was just like, look at him. He's a nigger. He's a nigger. Look at him. He's a nigger. He's a nigger. Like, to use that to the point that other people of other cultures feel sympathy or empathy with that word being used to you or derogatory. You know what I mean? Like, people feel.
I get your point.
You saying crack out there. People ain't feeling that. They just looking like, okay. But niggers making everybody look like, okay, what's about to happen?
Okay, so
you just called that black man nigga. He's about to wing off on you.
So the whole thing is, the argument is basically that because it doesn't cause as much social emotional damage, so it has less weight, right? But is it not still a double standard? It's still not the same act.
No.
We're not gonna talk about
double standard. I don't think it's. I think it's the socially acceptable part, though.
The socially acceptable is because So if I was
I don't
born,
think that is socially accepted. I just think that people don't.
it is though.
Is it?
It is. Yes. Look, think of it like this. This was a white comedian making fun of how a black person was calling a cracker. They were creating the cracker was still it's still a slur at the end of the day. It's still a slur. And the whole thing is what people are laughing about or finding funny about this story is that the reverse is unacceptable. We're laughing at the fact of we can see the wrong if it was reversed, but in this case, we're just gonna let it pass, even though we know deep down inside that it's still wrong, but we're gonna let it pass because because the reverse is much worse. It's still a double standard, and the thing is that the reason why I think that we've become acceptable to it is the fact that we have these arguing talking points of punching down or what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of like it seems like more of retribution than anything else. It doesn't seem like equality. It seems like retribution, and the whole thing is if your argument is that you want equality, you can't say equality is by me getting retribution on you. It's not like like basically it's almost like reparations. Like it's like, oh, I'm going to now take my social reparations by calling you cracker, and you got to sit there, and no matter how uncomfortable or how dehumanizing I treat you, you have to sit there and take it because that's socially acceptable.
Well, yeah, but I think the other part that he was talking about was the unity part of white people. You know what I mean? Saying like, shouldn't we be feeling offended and shouldn't we do something together? And the unity part of, like I'm saying, if you're calling somebody a nigger out like that, more people, not just black people, are going to be offended by it.
Yes.
That's, you know what I mean? Like more people are going to be offended by the term that you're using. And you're going to see more unity, be it from black people or be it from other cultures. You're going to see more unity in that. Whereas you're calling somebody a cracker, you don't see that much unity because it doesn't sting. It still doesn't hit the same.
I mean, I know it doesn't hit the same, but it's just that
that's what he was talking about. He was talking
but the principles, the principles are just not right,
Oh no, the principles aren't right now.
The principles aren't right because it's no different than with this whole social justice thing, where it's like, okay, we if you move out of the white neighborhood, then it's white flight, but if you move in the white neighborhood, it's gentrification.
Yeah.
All right. It's like you want to have your cake both ways and eat it too, and it's like that's insane. There's no way that could possibly happen. It's either one or the other. And the whole thing is, it's like these constant contradictions, basically undermine the whole principle of a lot of the social justice agendas.
Yeah, because
especially if you're trying to progress into a society.
Progress because we're still dealing in race. Like until we do away with the race, we won't progress. We're still dealing in race. But that's our problem. That's why we're saying if white people are moving out, we're saying it's flee, or if they're moving in, we're saying they're gentrified because we still look at it as a race and not looking at it as a, hey, this is person this my community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We still looking at it as a race thing.
One of the things that
that's how we've been programmed. Like it's sickening, but that's how we've been programmed.
One of the things that I've constantly been arguing is rather than focus on race, focus on class. Like you got black gentrifiers too. Like no lie, like Jason, when I bought my house in Montclair, this was coincidentally around the time where a lot of people were moving into this area of Montclair, and we were all renovating our home, shooting up the property values in this area. And he called me a gentrifier. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, yo, and immediately on some dumb shit, I just associate like, yo, that's white people. But yo, there's black gentrifiers too. Like there's black middle class people too. This is where that
there are, but this is also, I'm sorry to cut you off, Kat. This is also what Black Zeus was talking about in self-accountability. Bruh, at the end of the day, I'm just renovating my fucking house.
Thank you.
I
hear everything you said, but I'm saying
that man
I'm just renovating my house. I ain't gentrifying shit. live in a different house. Like
but that terminology is starting to exist too. Like people are saying, there's black flight. No one talks about black flight because it happens all the time.
One before.
Yeah, black flight.
Basically saying you can't love yourself.
Yeah, basically saying like, yo,
you want to live in my community, then you gotta live beneath your means,
which goes right back to our
you know what I mean? Like you got to live beneath.
This goes right back to our whole discussion a couple weeks ago.
And you're trying to be better than Black Zeus because you're fixing up your curb appeal.
This goes back to our discussion from a couple weeks ago about the gifted and talented program. So instead of helping Black students improve their test scores and standards and do better so that they can, if they belong in gifted and talented, they'll be there. No, you're saying, you know what, the other kids that should be in gifted, we're gonna hold them down.
Like that. Yeah,
that's our way of equity and equality, is by bringing somebody else down, even if they deserve to whatever they have or work for or thrive for.
So like exactly. So this is why we're having these internal conflicts amongst each other. Not saying us on this panel, but just in general, having like as a community. And like, I just don't understand how you expect white people to understand the issues of Black America when we're not cohesive in regards of what needs to be addressed. Like I could tell, like I'm with Black Zeus. Yo, it comes down to the family unit, but we will overlook the family unit dynamic and talk about, I don't know, some shit. I don't know, name like to John McWhorter, name the fucking issue, some shit that has no merit, no reasoning whatsoever. But we would like to point blame to that versus to like, what is your home structure like? Like we'll like to blame the CEO of McDonald's saying, yo, you're racist. You need some training, sensitivity training, or we're walking out. Versus to like really assess and do an analysis on what he had to say.
And it's funny that you said that. I read that last bit, and it said the Spanish guy, the Spanish councilman out there was saying, "Oh, we won't come to your McDonald's and we'll shut you down." And I'm thinking to myself,
for what?
Well, it ain't even shutting them down because y'all won't shut them down because you motherfuckers are going to go to McDonald's because you have. I'm about to go somewhere completely off the wall with this. I'm gonna just leave it alone.
He's like, what y'all gonna do?
Get the gist of it.
Y'all gonna go to Roof Chris?
You gotta
get the gist of it.
You gotta do the finisher. Go ahead, brother. Finish it.
You know what I mean? Like
you gotta hit it with the fatality.
So you're addicted to McDonald's and you're not gonna go to McDonald's now. Yeah, good luck with that. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna just leave it there. Like, good luck with that. You know what I mean?
And let's be for real. If you got a job at McDonald's, it's because you need a job at McDonald's. Like, real talk. You ain't gonna be like, oh no, now I'm social justice. I'm walking out on this job. No, I'm walking out on this job. You would not be working that job if you didn't need that money. Okay.
Exactly.
This wasn't like your weekend money, like, oh, I'm gonna take this McDonald's money and party it up on vacation.
He needs training because, and then the other guy, even Byron Allen, you didn't see that part. Byron Allen.
His ass chimed in talking about. He jumped
in because he's trying to get his. He's still on that advertisement. They won't do like advertisement in certain businesses. That's the thing. So everybody finds their little part, and they're like, "Oh shit, I could jump on there. I could jump on this, and I could argue this." Because Byron Allen ain't had shit to do with that. He's saying, "Oh yeah, that was being racist." Because when I tried to put my Black media's posters in there, they wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
That one ain't got nothing to do with the other, Byron. Like, I get it, but one ain't got nothing to do with the other, bro.
Exactly. This whole racism talk, in all honesty, which I enjoy, what I'm loving about this book is it's a grift. You got some people who genuinely want to help Black America and help with the Black and white relations or the Black and non-Black relations. Mm-hmm. And you got other people who sees, there's some monetary gains to be had in this situation. I don't want to. There are right now corporations having all of these diversity, inclusion conversations, and who they hiring? They're hiring that Ibrahim Kahinde type of folks at $50,000 a clip to have a bullshit ass speaking session, and I'm supposed to endure this, and I gotta have white colleagues talk to me like, so how you feeling? Bitch, I'm trying to get through the day. I don't give a fuck about this motherfucking, sensitivity training course. Like, we
so
cool.
How are you feeling?
Like, I don't care. Like, and I get it.
But they told me to check in with your feelings. So how are you feeling?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
It's like, apparently, just so you know, me and my spouse, we decided to change our master bedroom to the big bedroom in respect to, not trigger you with the word master. Like what?
Like what? Like that wasn't even on my
if you
fucking
don't get the fuck
radar.
away from me,
Exactly.
Like that's just some shit I care
but
about.
You know what? But like, think about it. You feel bad for the person because clearly they heard that nonsense from somewhere.
They heard it from somewhere, right?
That's true.
They heard it from somewhere. So it's just like, I can't say that you're coming at me looking like a retard. Oh, what? My bad. The special needs, and like you heard it from somewhere. This is why, man. Like I said, I feel bad, and I know I might catch some flack from some people who are listening to this. Like, how you feel bad for white people? I feel bad for white people who are genuinely trying to go about their lives, not trying to be in anyone's way, and they got to navigate this fucking landmine of what is racist, what is not racist. Can I say something? Can I breathe? Should I just endure being called a cracker all day on this bus ride?
On this boat, I'd be a cracker.
Like, I feel for him. I truly do. Because like I think what John McWhorter touched on it. Like, you say some wrong shit today. Oh, the Bill Burr skit that you shared with me the other day, Stuart.
Yeah.
He talked about, like, yo, you say some wrong, like, even some shit that's not even really controversial, but it comes across as borderline. Like John Gruden. Was it the John Gruden email? He's recently suing the NFL for his job or for the wrongful firing for his job. So I don't know if you guys know what's happening with John Gruden.
I don't know about that.
So like his email conversation was leaked. So he referred to one NFL player who happens to be black having some big ass lips. Now,
he had more than that, though. He had more than that.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yo.
I know he had more than that, but the one part that was racial was that, like, there's one black player, because he said some shit against the LGBTQ community that obviously you can't do these days. But we're strictly sticking on the racist part, right? So he referred to this one NFL player who referred to him having some big ass lips. Obviously, a lot of, we all know the history about black people, watermelon lips, and all that jazz, right? But look, I Googled the NFL player, and I was like, yo, this nigga does got some big ass lips. But coming from John Gruden, he couldn't say the shit.
Yo, I can't wait to the day.
He ain't say black. He ain't say,
he didn't even say black. He just said he had some big ass lips.
Yo, I'm telling you, this is why I can't wait for the day where there's a white girl with a big booty, some bubble lips, and a round nose, and you could be like, yo, look at that, look at that. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be like, look at that big booty, or, big lip, whatever the case is. Because it's funny to me that we automatically do it the minute that someone says a feature, we attach it to black.
Yeah.
Like as if the feature could not exist on nobody else. Like, there's no big lip white people. There's no big
like
booty,
J-Lo.
You know what I mean?
When J-Lo hit the scene with her butt, people saying, like, I can't believe we're recognizing J-Lo for her assets. Black women have assets, and they accuse J-Lo of cultural appropriation. And I'm like,
what?
Yo, you don't remember? Yo, I'm dead ass.
I didn't know they did that.
Yo, let me look.
Kim Kardashian like that too.
Yo, they accused J-Lo of being a culture vulture.
Oh Lord, for her ass being shaped the way it is.
Yo, that and everything else. Like, she's, the way she's had, earlier in her career, she did all these things with black men, black artists and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And then the moment she hits like her peak of her career, she hasn't had much.
She goes to Mark Anthony again.
Yeah, the Mark Anthony and stuff like that. So people called her a culture vulture for that, saying like she used the black experience to catapult her career, and then once she reached the status quo, she kind of just faded from doing anything that's considered black cultured.
They don't know J-Lo like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
Like, you got to remember, J-Lo started out on In Living Color. And as
I was going to say, like, yo.
As Jamie Foxx said it, J-Lo was a hoe on In Living Color. She was fucking with everybody, sleeping with everybody. This is personal record that Jamie Foxx said on his own account.
Yeah.
And she went
from one to turn down Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, she went from being a street whore to she made money to being a whore. Like,
she's the Cardi B of the
let's say allegedly. She allegedly went from a street whore. We don't want to definitively say that she was. We don't want to be allegedly. Like allegedly.
Allegedly, as Jamie Foxx allegedly stated.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's the thing.
Backed up by like 3 other actors too.
But mind you, we don't say this about Black people who do the same thing. Once you use, the what is perceived as Black culture to get on, they no longer surround themselves around Black people. Once they get on, they move out the hood. They live in some suburban ass area that's 90+% white. They hang out with nothing but 90% plus white friends, so it was just like J-Lo didn't do anything different than a Black person would have done in that circumstance. You see it all the time.
Might have. I wouldn't have done differently. I mean, I
for the most part.
If I'm moving out of my neighborhood, I'm not moving and just getting a new group of friends. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
you acquire new taste.
Here's the thing. We're confusing friends with the public. The public don't give 2 shits about you. Just as quick as they'll acknowledge you, as quick as they'll dismiss you. All right, we've seen that time and time again. You could be the king of pop one day, and be a child predator, the next day. You could be the reverend of a church one day, and then you could be like the bum ass politician the next day. Like though. When it comes to the public eye, I don't blame any star to use whatever public eye is going to give them attention so they get to where they want to be. Because at the end of the day, that public does not truly give a fuck about that person.
Yo, they said she's a culture vote because she wore a shirt that said Bronx Girl on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we never been to the Bronx? You don't know how many fucking Puerto Ricans are in the Bronx?
That's where she's from, though. But I think they said she's appropriate because she don't live in the Bronx anymore.
Yeah, they said J-Lo is the biggest cultural vote. She used hip hop to get on and then dumped it for the boots and pants and Latin music.
Okay. I once again I fail to see the problem. If you bought the product because you was happy with J-Lo then, you bought it. Nobody forced that shit on you. You bought it.
Latin music. What is J-Lo?
I was gonna say like, and then she goes to what she was born and raised with.
Exactly. Like what? I don't understand.
Like I'm trying to understand your problem here.
If I come to your Black Zeus, I expect you to have workout equipment. I'm just saying, like I don't understand. Like
I'm lost. Like.
But she to get on, and then she dumped it and got some boots. She went and got boots and pants. She stopped showing her ass and got boots and pants and started making Latin music.
I think, in the words of Malcolm X, I think we put too much on celebrities and what the fuck they do.
Exactly.
And not focus on, your own yourself and your own community, your direct community. It's just like we put too much emphasis on what celebrity, happen to do. But yeah, you get this sort of double standard. It's weird, man. Talking about race is very fucking. I remember Eric Holder, former U.S. Attorney General. He had like a 60-minute interview, and he said that America is afraid to have a discussion on race. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, but here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. While there could be some merit to that conversation, you are currently the U.S. Attorney General, and the President of the United States is currently Black. Why can't you guys lead the discussion? Like, that was the one argument I had when I was talking to Jason about it. It was just like, the dude, you had President Obama in back-to-back administration, had 2 U.S. Attorney General. Y'all could have led that discussion, but you didn't. So at the end of the day, why are we putting so much onus on white people to have these discussions when we're not really doing a good job in having healthy conversations around this.
I think.
Well,
Well, I
one
think
is the
Obama
fact of.
go ahead. I was about to say, I think Obama got the door open. I think that as the first black president, there was a lot of shit that wasn't just going to happen because it wasn't set up to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I just really believe that. And, you know, as you look at Obama's presidency and right shit he did, wrong shit he did, a lot of shit he was still getting met with a lot of tension, a lot of aggression, a lot of, nah, motherfucker, we ain't doing that just because it's your idea. You know what I mean? So to have a whole, I mean, the biggest thing that he did with race talks was having a fucking bear summit and shit. I don't know if you all remember his bear summit.
Yeah, I remember because that was off of Henry Louis Gate, you know, not breaking it, trying to get into his home because he was like, he got in the house and then that his neighbor called the police and it became a whole thing with the cop. Yeah,
whole thing with the cop because he's trying to get in his own house and shit.
Yeah, and then Obama made some, I don't know, some unpleasant remarks about the police officer being stupid in that situation. And then it became a whole thing about Obama not respecting law enforcement. And
because again, he's black. So if I say anything about, hey, let's talk about the whole black, it's just a whole lot of bullshit.
But my thing is, he could have used that time to really had a conversation about race, and he didn't.
But that is the problem. The problem is the fact of when you're in that position of sitting as the commander in chief, you're sitting in these high positions. You're not making decisions just for black people. You're not coming to represent black people.
Yeah.
You're coming to represent the whole, all of the people. So if you start showing impartiality and saying,
bingo,
you know, it seems, you know, like you came with the agenda and that you weren't looking out for everybody's best interest. You're only looking out for the one that your skin folks is your kin folks, you know, and that would automatically disqualify you in the future, because you're not being objective and looking at what's the best for everyone. So you can't really expect someone that's sitting in that position to have these conversations. If anything, what you should do is expect that black folks within their own communities should start building once amongst each other and say, hey, listen, me, Prad, Hakeem, Kel, we all live on the same block. So let's start, you know, being concerned about our block, about who's, you know, hanging out on our block, throwing trash on our block. Okay, now we get the next block to say the same thing. And now we start building our communities. Now we say, we go to our local town leaders, the mayor, whoever, the councilman, and say, hey, listen, our schools are falling apart. What the fuck is going on here? You know, what could we do to help, and what, you know, things are best for, like, unless you start on these lower levels and build your way up, you'll never see the transition, the change that you want to see in Black America. It's got to be deep-seated. It can't start from the top down.
And I agree. I think the problem, though, is when you come out there and make a statement like that, it's, you know, we're all about actions, every single one of us. If you're going to say some shit or insinuate some shit, you kind of want to have a follow-up to some regards. So, like, if you're going to have two high-ranking people within the United States talk about race relations, like, who else could be in a better position to really have a conversation about race relations? And it's not to say that you're going to show favoritism, but you're saying that, yo, this conversation needs to be had and you didn't have it. So I'm looking at the situation as, did you really truly want this conversation to be had? If so,
well,
why didn't you?
What did he mean by that? Did he mean that
exactly? But that's
between governments, or do you need or interpersonal one-on-one relationships?
But that's exactly, Schubert. Who knows? You just threw Eric Holder just threw that statement out there, and it's just like, yo, what do you
but some
mean?
of these guys do that shit just so they could sound profound. So
but isn't that a problem though? But like,
that is a problem. That is the whole clout thing of social media. And
exactly. That's a problem. Like, you threw a Molotov cocktail out there, and then it's just like, okay, now here's the thing.
But is it any different than being in a church when a pastor starts throwing out just random questions or whatever and just leaves it dangling? It doesn't give you any real answers. doesn't give you any solutions, get you all hyped up and everything. Yeah, Lord. Never actually answered a goddamn question.
You're absolutely right. That's that preacher
Never
comparison.
gave you any resolve.
Yeah. But that's why I said that when he made that remark, that conflated the issue amongst the race. That conflated the issue much more than just remaining silent about it. Because
but that's the thing, is the fact that most people, I'm sorry, but if they were intelligent, they would take that, what he said, and say, okay, the conversation needs to be had. And it needs to start with us here, now, me, this person hearing this, not, oh, I'm expecting someone else. And that's the thing. Everybody expects someone else. They'll make the statement that the conversation needs to be had, but they feel like it needs to be had by someone else other than them.
Yeah.
All right. That's how we dismiss everything. When we all know, like, I know I'm that person where, like, I may rant about something in society to someone, and they'll just look at me like it's not like you could say or do anything about it. You know, that's just the way it is. This, that, and the other. Like, stop talking about it. And that's the problem right there. Is we're not talking about it, not getting other people to talk about it, which doesn't cause any type of chain reaction or movement going. It just creates more of just this, go along to get along.
Yeah. So, like, here's a quote. He says, though this nation has proudly thought itself as an ethnic melting pot in things racial, we have always been and continue to be, in too many ways, essentially a nation of cowards. So this was really some of the talking points, saying, like, when it comes to race discussion, we're cowards when we want to have the discussion. And I'm like, well, you're a person of influence. Hold the discussion. Moderate the discussion. But you didn't do that. Huh?
But with who? And that's the thing.
No, you're right. I don't know with who, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to identify a problem, present a solution. What's one of the things we do when we talk about our books, or when we knock a book? This book didn't present any solution. It just came across as you just nitpicking on a problem.
Yeah, like cast. I got you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You see what I'm talking about?
Slapping. I got you.
You're just table slapping. But you didn't do that. You didn't say, all right, you didn't necessarily
guess what? He don't know how to fucking do it, bruh. Like, it's easy to say do something, but the motherfucker don't know how. That shit is a big thing.
But why? So why even present the issue?
But I'm reading what you have up here. He said, during Black History Month, fucking talk to somebody. He doesn't know. He don't have fucking answers. Just because people are in power don't mean they fucking know. He don't know shit.
I don't know, bro. I just feel like someone who is high ranking like that, your voice.
Oh shit, though, is what I'm saying. Go up to the top of that. All right, go up to the top where you was at. He's saying this motherfucker, the first Black Attorney General. He's urging Americans to use Black History Month to have a national conversation. He don't fucking know. But that's the best you can do, is urge people to have a national conversation.
But that's what I'm saying. But and that's what I'm saying. It's just like, yo, you're a lawyer.
He's a coward.
Well, shit.
He is exactly what he's saying. He's a coward. He's telling you what he is. So why would you think he's something else than what he's telling you the fuck he is? Cass, think about it.
You're right. All right, you're right. But that's what I'm saying.
Why would you think he would have anything greater than what he is? He's a coward. He's telling you he's a coward. And he's showing you that.
Interpretation I got.
Yeah, like he's showing you that. So why the fuck wouldn't you? Why would you expect more from a coward? That's my question to you.
To be honest,
exactly.
I agree. Now, when you put it that way, because I found that shit to be, I don't know, man. Like someone just throwing a Molotov cocktail into the crowd, and you're just saying like America's a nation of cowards, and it's just like, all right, well, you have this discussion of Black History Month, and you be the first one to show how this conversation is to be had.
You were supposed to say, including me.
Like me personally.
I mean, the whole thing is, I think, much like every other religion, you just leave the vague comment for someone to figure out for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then everybody gets their own interpretation. Now, what would have been a better statement would have been like, hey, during this Black History Month, we need to have national conversations about X, Y, and Z. And that could be you having dinner at your dinner table and talking about it amongst you and your family, or whether it be
Exactly.
talking with a friend or this, that, and the other. It could have been a little bit more detailed, but
Yeah,
much like every other religion, the conversation is vague to leave it for your own interpretation. Also, so the fact of if they need wiggle room to get out of what they said, you know, they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say go address
Exactly. That's what makes him a coward, Black dudes.
You know what I mean? I didn't say, you know, we need to have a national conversation with government. I didn't say that. I just said the conversation needs to be had.
Yeah.
And that's how religion works.
Exactly. Because I can't see you or Smith making a statement like that and not at least show an example. Like the way I imagine it is like if one of you guys had said some shit like that, you would set up some shit, and you have the power. You're the U.S. Attorney General. You would have probably set up an hour special. You could have easily gotten it, had a diverse group of people, and had this conversation to show the world this is how the conversation need to be had. But he didn't do none of that shit. You made this fucking remark. You didn't go into details like you said, Schubert, like he could have done. You just said these remarks, and then you just basically, if I'm a white person and I sit back and I'm saying like, damn, look at all the progress we made, and now you're saying that this shit, well, fuck you too then, because you're vague as shit. You're not saying exactly what the problems are. We just elected a black president, and here you coming off of, you know, saying that we're a nation of cowards of having a discussion of race.
Hey, did he do that? The revitalizing the Civil Rights Division, did he do that?
Let's see. You know, he
said that he vowed to revitalize the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department.
Keyword vowed, you know, but we know how elected officials.
That's what I said. Did he do that? I didn't follow up, but
I'm not dead yet, so I'm still holding on to my vow. I'm not dead yet. I know I haven't got done yet. I'm in the process.
I vowed to do right by my wife.
Earth before I leave this earth. I'm still in the process.
As long as I'm still alive, my vow was good.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not there yet. My vow was good.
Last question though. All right, so like I had the question in regards to essentially in chapter 1, what kind of people the author makes a parallel comparison to how racism is in its third wave, like the feminist movement. Do we agree with this comparison of the waves of racism compared to feminists? If not, elaborate why you disagree.
The waves of racism and the wave of feminist movement.
So I agree and disagree. I do agree the fact of like this third wave of racism is not the overt racism that we originally knew, and the somewhat statistical or subtle racism that we may have come across. It's become this whole new wave of racism, which is completely more detrimental to Black people probably than, the overt racism, just saying, nigga, stay out, Now it's like, oh, let me tell you that, we should dumb down these tests for you because you're not that smart, because you're behind. We're not going to help you improve yourself. We're going to tell you it's equity by bringing everybody else down to coddle you, But I disagree that it's like the third wave feminist, because in a way, there isn't the same type of power. So meaning the fact of at a football game that is predominantly men, played by men, coach ran by men, and patroned by men, we don't recognize prostate cancer, but we recognize breast cancer and have all the football players wear pink every year.
That shit irritate me. I just want to say
all right.
Quick. Go ahead.
We have the football players play pink every year, right?
Nothing for prostate cancer played by all men.
Nothing for prostate cancer played by the men that are probably watching this right now are gaining prostate cancer. The men that are, on the field probably have prostate cancer, but fuck them. We're going to acknowledge the women that are not here. Okay?
Yeah.
And we're going to, and if anything is done against the women that seems wrong, we're going to completely take away a man's career, his whole entire livelihood, his Hall of Fame, all that. We're gonna take that away from him completely, right? That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna completely annihilate him. That's where I'm just like, no, it's not exactly the same because third wave racing doesn't have that type of power. It doesn't. It does not move shit like that. It stays in the social media aspect. Oh, look at me, acknowledging the patriarchy, the systemic racism. That's all it does. It panders.
I think it's closer to the first wave of the LGBTQ. I think the third wave is closer to the first wave of the LGBTQ.
Yeah. I think
feminist movement.
The issues that he's pointing about the woke racism, I think that's really more fourth wave, maybe fifth wave. It's not third. I think because the first wave he says is getting out of the slavery. The second wave is the civil rights movement, and we're in this third wave. But I'm like, I don't know, man. You have to deal with the crack epidemic, the incarceration. Like those are real things.
Those are real things.
Yeah, and like you got to deal with that. I don't think.
So maybe he's talking more of the movement, because the whole thing is the breakaway from slavery was a whole movement where slaves were with the Underground Railroads and everything from slaves fighting in the Revolutionary War and this, that, and the other, so forth and so on. So that was a whole movement. I think he's talking about the actual major movements in this whole racism, not just what actually is happening. He's not saying is a way for like redlining, a way for the crack epidemic, a way for
I get
he's talking about the actual movements themselves that made a change in society. And
maybe okay.
If you're looking at the Emancipation Proclamation and breaking away from slavery, that was one way. That was one big
correct
movement. Then the second big movement was the civil rights movement, when we were in the streets and saying, no, we're not going to sit at the back of the bus. No, we're not going to not drink at these water fountains and so forth and so on. That's when that movement happened. And that was the next big movement that was like world changing.
But
I think we missed that part. I think there was another wave. I don't know if he even got these waves right. I got to go back and look at that shit.
Yeah,
I think he got the waves right.
Listen to chapter 1 again, because he breaks down the waves, or he makes the parallel comparisons. Mm-hmm. And I hear what you're saying, Black Zeus, in regards of what the movements are. I just feel like there was another movement prior to what he's talking about now, in regards of
the Great Migration that he ain't discussed. Like there was other pieces that went into that. You know what I mean? But I think that there's more. The whole,
like, I get, we are at a stage now in regards of having the elects who are the Ibrahim Kende, the Ta-Nehisi Coates, the shit. Name them. What's the pale white dude? Well, he's pale black. Sean King. Oh, that's Sean. What that? Yeah, we know. I see you laughing there, Smith.
You like the pale white dude? He's pale black.
But you know who I'm talking
about.
Yellow.
Yeah. In the words of Hakim, the high yellow.
Yeah. That brother. Like, so you got that stuff. I get that is similar to what the third wave of feminists is, where it's just like you griping about nothing. You're making a much ado about nothing. But I feel like the waves are not parallel, because I think like I don't know if it's our third wave. I don't know. I agree that we're at that point with the elects doing what they're doing, being grifters and what have you, but I don't know if the comparisons are strong. I don't know if the waves are accurate, in my opinion, but I'm not a scholar in this shit, so what the fuck do I know?
No, you're not a scholar, but you got your own motherfucking idea of some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck.
Well, as we read in Disintegration of Black America, the feminist movement and the civil rights movement, kind of flowed right within one another.
They did. So you're right. So if you look